I have no intention of spending my life with someone like you. Stop leeching off me, you parasite.
Unforgivable. After dedicating myself to you for over 20 years, you disregard everything I've done. Kevin's words made me incredibly angry, but the prospect of divorce was favorable for me too. Make sure you don't regret kicking me out.
What? Regret it? Never. I'll never want you back.
Just wait and see. You'll soon take back those words. My name is Catherine, and I'm a 54-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband, Kevin, for over 20 years. You might think we're a good couple because we've been together for so long, but that's not the case. We're just staying together because we can't seem to separate. Kevin was kind when we were dating, but after we got married, his attitude changed, and he became controlling and emotionally abusive. The main reason our marriage lasted is because we have a son. Our son, Luke, was born about a year after we got married. Luke grew up to be a smart, cheerful, and very kind child, which is the best thing about my marriage. However, I raised him entirely on my own. Kevin never helped with parenting or housework at all. It's a miracle that Luke turned out to be such a wonderful kid in that environment. Kevin was terrible from the very beginning of our marriage.
When we get married, you need to stay at home and handle all the chores perfectly.
What?
As soon as we started living together, he began ordering me around like that. I met Kevin at a group date. He's 4 years younger than me, but he approached me very aggressively.
I like older women. I guess I'm the type who wants to be pampered. Catherine, you're beautiful and seem so mature. Honestly, it was love at first sight for me.
With that, he kept asking me out, and since I'm not good at saying no, I did go on these dates, even when I wasn't interested in him myself. However, dating him was really fun. He always planned our dates thoughtfully, and above all, he treated me with great care. He had a typical bad boy vibe, but I found his serious side appealing and fell for this unexpected contrast. We continued dating smoothly from there. About a year and a half into our relationship, he proposed to me.
I want to spend my life with you, Catherine. So please marry me.
I was thrilled when he proposed to me. Of course, my answer was yes, and I felt so happy I could stare at the ring he gave me forever. After that, we went to greet each other's parents. That's when I first learned that Kevin's father runs a company. I had no idea he was the son of a CEO, so I was surprised.
If I told you up front, there are women who continue dating just for money, right? They just want to sponge off you. So, I kept it quiet to see if you were one of those women.
I see.
His words sounded a bit demeaning to women, but it's probably something all rich people worry about. However, I was glad I passed his test and made it to marriage. It meant he believed I wasn't after his money. When we met his parents, Bob and Sarah, for the first time during the marriage greeting, they were very kind.
Thank you so much for deciding to marry Kevin.
Catherine, you seem like a very kind person.
I'm glad you're older. Kevin can be childish, so I always thought it'd be good for him to have an older wife.
Please take good care of Kevin.
Hey, Mom, Dad, don't talk about me like I'm a kid.
What are you saying? You are a kid.
What?
I laughed at the interaction between Kevin and his parents. Even though Bob was a CEO, he was very humble and modest, and Sarah was kind and had a wonderful bright smile.
I'd be happy to be part of this family.
After that, we had a formal meeting between both families, and then we had our wedding. As expected for the son of a CEO, the groom's side had a huge number of relatives and colleagues attending. The venue was big, and the wedding itself was lavish. My friends and parents said it was like a celebrity wedding. After that, we went on our honeymoon. We went to Italy, which was his choice, and we did a lot of sightseeing and enjoyed delicious food. The local Italian cuisine was so good that everyone should try it at least once. Our honeymoon might have been the first and last happy memory we made together. After returning home, Kevin and I started living together. At his request, I became a housewife, but as I mentioned before, his attitude became very overbearing after the marriage.
Listen, I'll hand you a portion of my salary for living expenses. Manage everything with that.
Okay,
I was bewildered by his sudden change in attitude.
Hey, what's for dinner tonight?
what? Grilled fish, but
I can see that. I want meat tonight. Why did you make something so plain?
I'm sorry.
Unbelievable. Order takeout.
What? Takeout.
If you start over now, it'll take too long. Just order takeout. Chicken is fine.
If my cooking didn't match his mood that day, Kevin wouldn't eat it. He'd either order takeout or, if we had the ingredients, demand that I cook something else. Each time, it made me feel very sad. Moreover, when we ordered takeout, Kevin wouldn't pay for it, so I had to cover it from the household money he gave me. But the amount Kevin gave me was small. Our rent for the apartment was $700. Kevin gave me $1,000. So I had to cover food, utilities, and other expenses with the remaining $300. It's absolutely impossible, but on top of that, Kevin made these unreasonable demands, making it really hard to manage. Sometimes I could just barely keep it under $300, but most of the time, I exceeded it. In those cases, I used my savings. Despite my efforts, Kevin spent his salary however he wanted. He bought brand name goods and went out drinking. However, after our son Luke was born, managing on just $1,000 became impossible. I talked to Kevin about it.
Hey, can you give a little more money for the household expenses?
What? Why? I told you to manage with what I give you.
I'm asking because it's impossible.
No way. I won't allow it. It would reduce what I can spend.
Then, please let me work part-time.
What? Absolutely not. The housework will be neglected.
It won't be. If I only rely on the small amount you give me, I can't feed Luke properly. I don't want him to grow up in poverty and hunger.
Poverty? Are you kidding me? I'm the son of a CEO and the next CEO. Watch your mouth, you fool.
Then please, either allow me more money for the household, or let me work part-time.
Damn it. Fine, but promise me you won't neglect the housework. Only then can you work part-time.
Finally, Kevin allowed me to work. It's exhausting having to go to such lengths. After that, I started working as an office clerk at a company near our home. Since I had been working as an office worker for a long time, I managed to get a job without any problems. And so my busy days began. First, I wake up early at 5:30 a.m. to make lunch for both Kevin and me. Then I prepare dinner, clean the bathroom and toilet. After that, I make breakfast when Kevin gets up, and after seeing him off, I quickly wash the dishes. Next, I take Luke to daycare and then head to work. I finish work around 3:30 p.m., pick up Luke, and stop by the grocery store before heading home. Since I've done some housework in the morning, I do the cleaning and laundry in the afternoon and start making dinner so it's ready by the time Kevin gets home. I hardly get any rest, but just being able to feed Luke properly is enough for me. Besides, spending time with Luke and seeing his smile makes all the fatigue disappear. By the way, Kevin never helped with housework or childcare. Given his attitude, I never really expected him to, but still, he could at least spend some time with Luke. However, when we visited his parents, he would act as if he was always involved in Luke's life, which showed how petty he was. Seeing how different Kevin's behavior was from when we were dating, I began to suspect that Sarah and Bob might also be terrible people. But when we visited them after our marriage, they were just as kind as they were during the wedding greeting. They cared about my health and played with Luke properly. In fact, I felt more at ease at their place than I did at home with Kevin.
Catherine, do you have any concerns? You recently started working part-time, right? It must be quite challenging managing motherhood and housework at the same time. If you ever need to talk, feel free to reach out.
Oh, thank you. But I'm okay for now.
I'm glad to hear that. Bob and I are always here for you, so don't hesitate to visit.
I'm happy to hear that.
Their kindness was a real comfort to me. Kevin's attitude remained terrible and overbearing even years after our marriage. On top of that, he started coming home later and skipping dinner more often. While this might make a typical wife sad, I actually found it a relief. The atmosphere at home was much better without Kevin. It was just Luke and me, which made things more relaxed and peaceful. When Kevin was home, he would lash out depending on his mood. On weekends, he would suddenly decide we were going out, get frustrated with the crowds, and start getting irritable. I thought it would be better if we just stayed home and relaxed, but if I said anything, he'd get furious. I didn't want Luke to see Kevin when he was having one of his outbursts. So, unless it was extremely unreasonable, I just went along with Kevin. Of course, when it was just Luke and me, I made sure to educate him properly so he wouldn't adopt Kevin's values. As a result, Luke grew up to be a wonderful child. On weekends when Kevin went out alone, I would take Luke to visit his grandparents. Sarah and Bob were sensible and kind, so I think being around such adults helped shape Luke's character. I spent my days focusing on raising Luke without expecting anything from Kevin. Before I knew it, time flew by, and Luke quickly grew up. He worked hard in school and got into a prestigious high school. Naturally, he was hoping to get into college. I saved a little from my part-time earnings to support him in whatever path he chose. So, no matter which university Luke wanted to attend, it wouldn't be a problem. When Luke became a high school senior, he talked to me about his future plans.
Mom, I really want to go to a university in New York, but tuition and living expenses will be pretty high, right?
Luke shared his aspirations to me honestly, but seemed worried about our financial situation. Kevin hadn't changed all this time, still giving very little money to the household. He always thought expenses like tuition were a waste. By then, he had taken over as CO from Bob, so he had a decent income. Yet, he refused to pay for his own son's education. But I had anticipated this, so I had been saving money. Don't worry, you don't have to give up on anything. I'll cover your tuition and living expenses. I've saved up enough for that.
Thanks, Mom. I'll study hard, get a good job, and repay you.
That's really sweet, honey. But first, you need to get into college.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Luke said with a bright smile. With his doubts gone, Luke focused intensely on his studies every day. And he successfully got into the university in New York.
Mom, I got in. I was accepted.
Wow, that's amazing. We were overjoyed looking at the acceptance letter. Kevin, who was off work that day and noticed our excitement, spoke to us, something he rarely does.
What's going on? Why are you making such a fuss?
Let's ignore the fact that I had told him about the acceptance announcement already during dinner last night. Kevin only paid attention to things that interested him. Luke got into his first choice university. I'm so happy he made it after all his hard work. I replied to Kevin with a smile, unable to hide my joy. Kevin asked without changing his expression.
What university is it?
New York University. I answered, and Kevin frowned.
Why New York? That's a waste of money.
I was fed up with Kevin's remark. Does Kevin not remember any of our conversations? I told you I would cover the tuition and living expenses, remember? Did you already forget?
What? Is that so?
You really don't care about this family, do you? Or do you have the memory span of a goldfish? When it came to Luke, I tended to get very heated. I guess my frustrations with Kevin had also been building up. When provoked, Kevin turned red with anger.
How dare you speak to me like that? Who do you think puts food on the table?
Oh, the food I cook, and I wash your shirts so you can go to work looking presentable. Stop belittling housewives. If you think it's so easy, do all the housework yourself.
Don't be ridiculous. I earn enough so that I don't have to do any housework.
Kevin said and stormed out of the house. Luke, I'm sorry. This was supposed to be a celebration.
It's okay, Mom. Thank you for standing up to Dad.
I didn't want to end the day on a sour note, so I took Luke to Kevin's parents' house. We shared the news of his acceptance to the university. Sarah and Bob were overjoyed and decided to take the four of us out for steaks. Luke was able to eat his favorite steak and looked very happy. Thanks to that, I felt happy again too. By the way, Kevin didn't come home for a while after that day. Where could he be? Probably with some other woman. I knew Kevin was having an affair. He was so transparent, his expressions always gave him away. Plus, he was terrible at hiding things, so there were many suspicious signs. I had hired a private investigator once, so I had all the evidence. I planned to divorce Kevin once Luke graduated from college and became independent. I was just waiting for the right time. But then, something unexpected happened. Bob suddenly passed away from an illness. He had high blood pressure, and one day he suffered a stroke and didn't recover. I rushed to the hospital after getting a call from Sarah. I tried to console the panicking Sarah while we waited for Bob to be treated, but he didn't make it. During this time, I tried contacting Kevin multiple times, but he didn't check his messages or answer his phone. I had to call his office and leave a message before he finally came to the hospital.
Is it true that Dad died? Why didn't you contact me sooner?
I called you many times. You just didn't notice.
You should have called my office sooner then.
Kevin's attitude infuriated me, but now wasn't the time for arguments. We needed to prepare for Bob's funeral. However, Kevin received a call, and after finishing it, he said,
I'll leave everything to you.
with that, he left the hospital. I watched in stunned silence. How could he just leave when his father passed away? Shouldn't he comfort Sarah, discuss funeral arrangements, and handle things for Bob? Work may be busy, but it was clear Kevin had no intention of caring for Sarah or honoring Bob. I realized relying on Kevin was pointless and took it upon myself to handle the funeral arrangements and preparations. When I contacted Luke, he immediately took a train and came back home. Even though Bob had passed the company to Kevin, he was still the former CO. We had to inform the company employees and reserve a large venue for the funeral. It was overwhelming, but with the help of Luke and the company staff, we managed to organize the funeral. What angered me was that, despite Kevin dumping all the responsibilities on me, he insisted on being the head mourner. Normally, Sarah would take on that role, but she was devastated by Bob's death and couldn't manage it.
Mom can't handle being the head mourner right now. I'm the CEO, so I should oversee the funeral.
Kevin acted as if he was running the show, trying to take all the credit. But the main goal was to give Bob a proper farewell, so that was fine. However, I had one major concern. It was about Sarah. Sarah and Bob were a wonderful, loving couple. Anyone could see how much Sarah loved Bob. Losing her beloved partner must have been unimaginably painful. In fact, Sarah's health started deteriorating rapidly after the funeral. She became ill and began frequenting the hospital. About 6 months after Bob's death, Sarah's condition worsened to the point where she had to be hospitalized. I went to the hospital immediately to handle her admission and other formalities. I visited her every day to check on her. Sarah, how are you feeling?
I'm doing a lot better now. Thank you so much for coming every day. Bob and I were truly lucky to have you as a daughter-in-law. I can't thank you enough for staying married to Kevin for over 20 years.
Sarah.
I'm sorry for all the trouble Kevin has caused you. I never imagined he'd turn out this way. Where did I go wrong in raising him?
Sarah looked so sad. Kevin never visited her, and even when Bob was alive, he rarely showed up at their houses. Kevin didn't care about Sarah's hospital bills either, so I was paying them. I also didn't want to discuss it with Kevin. If I talked to Kevin about it, he would have likely said it was a hassle or a waste of money and insulted Sarah. It was better that he remained uninterested and uninvolved. So, I continued visiting Sarah every day while managing housework and my jobs. One day, when I returned from the hospital, I found my belongings thrown into the yard. What is this? I was confused. I rushed inside to find Kevin waiting for me.
Oh, you're finally back.
What's going on? Why are my things thrown out?
It's exactly what it looks like. I'm kicking you out.
What?
I'm divorcing you.
Divorcing me?
I have no intention of spending my life with someone like you. Stop leeching off me, you parasite.
Kevin laughed maniacally. Unforgivable. After 20 years of dedicating myself to you, you treat me like this. Kevin's words made me furious, but the prospect of divorce was also favorable for me. Make sure you don't regret kicking me out.
What? Regret it? No way. I never want anything to do with you again.
Just wait and see. You'll soon take back those words. I gathered my belongings from the yard and said. Then I headed to a certain place with my things. It was the house I had planned to move into after the divorce. Actually, before I married Kevin, when my grandfather passed away, I inherited a large fortune from him. My grandfather was a major landowner and had accumulated substantial assets. Of course, a portion of the inheritance went to my father, but as the only daughter, I also received a considerable amount. I had kept this a secret from Kevin the entire time. Just as Kevin hid that he was the son of a CEO, I hid that my grandfather was wealthy. Even though my grandfather was wealthy, my parents never relied on his money. They worked as civil servants and led modest lives. So, like them, I chose to live off my own earnings. Meanwhile, I used the assets inherited from my grandfather to make investments and further increase my savings. Honestly, I had enough assets to live comfortably without working, but if I had paid for Luke's tuition and other expenses without working, Kevin would have become suspicious. So, I worked part-time to cover Luke's expenses as much as possible with my earnings. Kevin still seemed unaware of my substantial assets, so I must have managed well. After completing my move, I went back to Kevin. I handed him a filled-out divorce agreement and had him sign it as well.
What are you going to do now? End up homeless?
Don't worry, I have a new place to live.
What? What do you mean?
I was planning to divorce you. You saved me the trouble by bringing it up.
I don't like your language. You were just living off of my salary. The disrespect.
Say whatever you want, but you will be paying alimony for your affair.
What?
I know everything. Here's the proof. I showed him the evidence of his affair.
Don't think you can scare me with this.
Kevin tried to act tough, but his face turned pale. Well, that's fine. We'll handle everything through my lawyer. Kevin was clearly shaken. Eventually, the divorce was finalized, and he paid the alimony. But Kevin's troubles didn't end there.
What the hell? I'm getting a bill for Mom's hospital expenses.
Kevin called me out of the blue. It was about Sarah's hospital bills. Of course, I was paying them before, but it's your responsibility as her son.
What? You never told me.
Well, now you know. You can start paying from now on.
Don't be ridiculous. I've been ousted as CEO.
Oh, really?
It's your fault.
I didn't do anything. I merely told Sarah everything.
What? What do you mean?
Sarah was furious that you neglected the family and had an affair. So, as the majority shareholder, she had you removed as CEO.
No way. Mom betrayed me?
You betrayed Sarah multiple times. Don't make her out to be the villain.
And where are you living now? You're probably in some rundown apartment, right?
Oh, not at all. Let me show you. I switched to a video call and showed him the interior of my house. Kevin was speechless.
What? What is this houses? It's a mansion.
This is a $3 million houses.
$3 million? How do you have a house like that?
I was hiding that I'm wealthy, just like you hid your family's wealth. I got a bit impulsive when bought this house. I guess I just wanted to show you that I'm doing better than you. But it's a good investment and a place for Luke to live after I'm gone.
No way. You doing better than me.
Kevin was clearly in shock. I felt a sense of satisfaction seeing Kevin so stunned. After that, Kevin's affair partner left him too. She must have been attracted to his CEO title. In his desperation to compete with me, Kevin started a new business despite having almost no assets. As expected, it failed, leaving him with a lot of debt. Cut off from Luke and Sarah, with no one to rely on, he now works part-time jobs to pay off his debt and lives a poor life. I decided to cover Sarah's hospital bills. She had done so much for me, and I had already gotten my revenge on Kevin. Now, Luke and I regularly visit Sarah together. Luke is now a successful businessman and has grown into a fine young man. His face has become more distinguished and confident. I plan to continue taking care of Luke, my parents, and Sarah while continuing my investments and work, enjoying a peaceful and calm life.